Okay. Hi, Reverend Erie. How are you? Okay. Okay. All right. All right. All right. Well, I'm excited for you. Your territory has been increased. And there you go. Well, honey, they'll have to do a reset. They can't catch up on this. Mm-mm. No, baby. Something. God let something happen. And that is that. So, hold on. Let me bring you up. Can you say, okay, speak, please?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, Devin, how do I sound now? Do I sound too hot?
You're a little bit louder than Reverend Erie.
Okay, how do I sound now?
You sound better than Reverend Erie. Can you talk to me, please? Sure. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're still a little bit louder than him, Santita.
Okay, that's interesting. My phone wasn't doing that before.
Huh.
Yeah, I didn't have to make the adjustment because I'm having to, I have to keep him up. So, well, let me just see where I need to be. How do I sound now?
Still a little hot.
How do I sound now?
Okay, now you sound much better. You're definitely. I'm looking at the levels here too. You're not peaking anywhere. You sound a lot clearer, a lot less hot. Obviously.
Okay, well then, what I'm going to do? Hold on. I'm doing fine right now.
Yeah.
Okay, Reverend Erie, speak, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3. Okay, you sound good. Your levels are about the same.
Okay, because he sounds a little low for me. Thank you, Yolanda. Okay, and I'm getting feedback, an echo. All right, well, let's get right to it. We're about to come up. You guys, I'm glad to be back.
I was asking, are you still getting feedback?
No, not now.
Okay, good.
Okay, so I am glad to be back with everyone today. Was a little under the weather, but we'll talk about that in a hot second. Okay. Come on, y'all. Come on, pumpkin. Let's come back. All right. Here we go. Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Very, very good. All right. So, let me get this clock together. Okay. Move it over here as I generally do. Move this up here. And we are cooking with hot grease. It's good to be with you all today. Let me put this back here. Reverend Erie? Oh, okay, great. So I've got you. As Sonny and Cher used to sing, I got you, babe. And hold on one moment, please. You just keep talking. Okay. Okay. All right. Very, very good. Whew. Well, I'm glad to be back too, everybody. My dear SJ Morningstar's family. I'm glad to be with you. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be back on my feet. Thank goodness for that. So let me get right to it. We're almost ready. So let's have a great show, everybody. Thank you, Devin. Okay, how do I sound now?
You sound perfect.
Okay, great. Great, great, great. Okay, all right. Well, then I got the levels right for when I toggle, when I'll be toggling back and forth. So, okay. All right. So everybody, hey, hey, hey. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Let me know, of course, as soon as you get Dr. Verholden and or Dr. Knighton up, okay? Oh, D-Ray, but I'm doing great now. Oh, I missed you all too. And I want to thank Brandon and Andrea.
60 seconds, everyone.
Okay.
And 10 seconds.
All right.
Change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world. This is the Santita Jackson Show. And hate to a place of love is not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. And I'm back. I'm Santita Jackson. It's Monday, April 25th, 2022. It's a joy to be with you today on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is wonderful to be with you today, and I want to hear your voices. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to thank Andrea Darlis, one of the brilliant journalists. Really, she's done so much to make a way for women in journalism, in particular in Chicago, and I'm so grateful for her. And she's worked in so many different spheres. She is an absolute gem, and I have been able to defend upon my sister friend, and of course, Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson, my dear, dear, dear brother friend. They both stepped into the breach for me, and I want to thank them. And I was away, everybody, and I was away because I had COVID. Hmm. Didn't say that I wasn't going to be able to get it. What I've tried to do is share with you different uh, ways that we can protect ourselves against it, but also you wanted to get your body strong enough to be able to handle the hit. When this pandemic first reared its ugly head, my doctor told me, "You're going to get it. Just take for granted you're going to get it." And I did, and I did, and I've been so tired for because I've been keeping, oh my goodness, these 20-hour days, 21-hour days, 7 days a week, which is unsustainable. I've been doing that, and I looked up, and COVID was not even something that we looked for. We were looking for bronchitis because I've had bronchitis. I have a history of that and of pneumonia, and we were trying to make sure that this didn't manifest. I came off the air a couple of Mondays ago, and I just was feeling unwell. I felt cold, coldish, fluish, and that's what it was, though. But that's what it felt like. And I got myself under some electric blankets and down comforters, had a lot of stuff. And 4 days later, that is when my viral load was heavy enough for me to find out that I actually was indeed COVID positive. I'm COVID negative now, so I want to thank you for your prayers. I want to thank you for your thoughts. And we'll talk about that some more with Doctors Knighton and Verholden, because I want you all to be okay. I want you all to be okay. Whatever you need to do, get that vitamin C and D in. I'm no physician, but I do know that they started treating patients who had COVID with vitamin C, massive doses back in 2020 of March. I read that article to you from the New York Post. Do everything you can to reinforce your immune system. So let's get right to it. Today, we are going to be talking about Clarence Thomas. That's right. He's been in the news lately because people are wondering, how can he stay on the court with all of these conflicts of interest that he has in his personal and professional life? But that's not the only thing we need to look at. He attacked a landmark school desegregation case. And that is what is very dangerous about Clarence Thomas. I mean, his attacks upon equal justice under the law. We're going to talk about that with Attorney Darrell Jones. And then, did you know that U.S. police have killed nearly 600 people in traffic stops since 2017? Now, Black people are 13% of the population, but we're 20% of those who get killed in these traffic stops. We've got to talk about that. Why is that happening? What is going on? Mapping Police Violence is a nonprofit research group that has been collecting this data. This data can be very, very difficult to pull together. And it's something that we need to talk about because everyone says that you need to comply, but it appears that when we comply, we die. We've got to do something about that. So, sending much love to everybody. Let's get some of these headlines out the way so we can get some good news before Reverend Dr. Todd Urey Esquire goes to court today. Yes, he's on this side of the law, everybody. Remember, he is a physician. In Chicago, it's going to be 55 degrees. That will be our high, but it will be cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 38 degrees. It will be cloudy. Oh, the Bulls are on the brink of elimination. Prayers up, prayers up. 3-1. They're behind the Bucks. Well, the Bucks are the world champions, everybody. And yesterday, they proved their mettle. The Bucks won 19. The Bulls 95. Come on, Bulls. Come on back. You can do it. The Pelicans were triumphant over over the Suns, 118 to 103. And then the Heat, 110. The Hawks, 86. And the Nuggets, 126. And the Warriors, 126. I want to dedicate the show today to Orrin Hatch. Well, as many of you might say. But you know what? This senator, the first time I've ever recorded an album, I recorded it with him. He produced it. And it was songs that he had written. I'm going to start playing those songs again. And I might even use them as some of the theme music for the show. He heard me sing the national anthem at the Clinton inauguration in 1997. He called my brother, who was in Congress at the time. And he said, you know, I'm a songwriter. Do you think that she might consider doing some of my songs? And he was known for personally reaching across the aisle. And he personally reached across to me and gave me so much guidance as a musician. And I've always had so much love in my heart for Senator Orrin Hatch and his beautiful family. They've been so, so wonderful to me personally. Whatever our political disagreements, whatever our personal agreements might have been, that never came through. What always came through was his decency as a human being. And so I'm sending much love to him, one of the longest serving senators in American history, 88 years of age. God bless you, Senator Orrin Hatch. Everybody. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken announced that U.S. diplomats will return to Ukraine this week, a move officials are characterizing as a strong message of solidarity from the United States. Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin traveled to the Ukrainian capital of Kiev over the weekend, where they met with the Ukrainian President Zelensky, making them the highest level U.S. officials to have traveled to the country. Neoliberal, that's how they're describing him. French President Emmanuel Macron won his election, although the far-right candidate Marine Le Pen increased her vote share, but he still got nearly 60% of the vote. There was a lot of fear that he might not win that election, but actually he came on through. Congratulations to President Macron. Of course, as you remember, I met him last summer after he gave Reverend Jackson the Legion of Honor award, France's highest civilian honor. We thank God for his victory today. The Biden administration will renew its push with lawmakers to secure COVID-19 funding. When Congress returns from recess this week, a White House official told CNN a $10 billion funding package is currently on the table. You know, remember Mark Meadows? He, of course, had been the chief of staff to President Donald Trump. And he has always accused people, Reverend Dr. Urey, of registering to vote, well, in a fraudulent way. Well, guess what? Reverend Dr. Urey, he is registered to vote in multiple states. Okay, now I get it. You have homes in multiple states, but really? Mary McLeod Bethune, civil rights giant, indeed an American heroine who advised presidents. Indeed, she was part of FDR's kitchen cabinet. She will be honored with a statue in the National Statuary Hall. And I must tell you, Reverend Dr. Yuri, this honoring of African Americans in Statuary Hall, inside of the hall, not outside of it, where they have a bust of Dr. King's head, was started by my brother, then Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. When he toured the Capitol after he won, he saw that there were no black people in Statuary Hall, but there were loads and loads of Confederate heroes. And so he initiated well, he didn't initiate it, he created the Rosa Parks statue. And there you have it. So, Reverend Dr. Yuri, how are you today?
Well, good morning, Santita. Glad to know that you're back and feeling better. I actually thought about you when I saw the news alert that Senator Hatch had made his transition, because I remembered that you had told me that you recorded an album with him. So my condolences to the Hatch family, to you, because having met the senator, his sense of decorum was different. It may not have been his politics, but he always presented himself in a dignified sort of way, which is something that we've lost in our current political platform. So when Mark Meadows stands up, he can register in multiple states, but then we have to fight to correct the record for folks who have been wrongly convicted for attempting to vote. Something is just dreadfully wrong in America. But I'm glad to know you're back. We got a lot of work to do. Yes, I'm going to court this morning because I play a lawyer on TV sometimes. But I'm glad to be able to hang out with you and the crew on Monday morning. I've missed you. I've been away for a couple of weeks, but I'm back. Here we go. Let's get to it. Good morning, Chicago. Good morning, Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Come on. Get up, get moving. Chicago, you can't stay in the bed because we down 3-1. You got to face this thing today. Put your feet on the floor. Feel that coolness of the tile coming back at you. Take a deep breath. Fill your lungs with, here we go, L-I-F-E. You're alive. So guess what? Don't run from it. Don't hide from it. Let's go on and take the day by the horns and make something happen. So as you get that morning beverage going, that morning coffee, that orange juice, drink that water, stay hydrated because things are happening. We gotta talk about some things. Now, Santita, here's the thing. You know, we always say April showers bring May flowers. And I was thinking about it. I'm like, okay, that's a nice rhyme. I remember that from my childhood. But if I want flowers in April, but April brings the showers, what do I do? Because sometimes we can live in such a state of anticipation that we lose sight of the need to develop a key ingredient for success, and that's patience. Now, I got to be the first one to tell you, if I'm in a zone, waiting is not something I'm inclined to do. I want it like yesterday. But the truth of the matter is progress is process. And that everything that we do has to be a part of moving us one step closer to our goal, to our objective, to our destiny. And so the reference to time, April showers bringing May flowers, sometimes we get stuck because we feel like life is unfulfilled because it's not happening on our terms. The one thing we have to remember is that blossoms take time, and most of the work is done out of sight. And so while you may not see something happen, you still got to keep watering. You still have to keep tilling. You have to pay attention to nurturing your gifts so that you can then get to the place of fulfillment when your process is complete. You have to be willing to stay focused, not frustrated. Don't let anybody take you off your square. Stay engaged and make sure that you understand that what you are doing now that may be out of sight, beneath the surface, is going to lead to great blossoms, a flourishing that is just around the corner. So on today, even though you may have some showers today, understand even the showers fit within that plan that God has for you, because the showers won't last always. And I promise you, there's a sprout coming that's going to be a good sign that spring is going to bring new opportunities, new blessings, ahead and get to it. Don't worry about the delay. The process is worth the wait. Have a great day.
Amen to that. I love it. I love it. I love it. The process is worth the wait. You know, my mother talked to me about waiting. She said, you know, waiting doesn't mean you're doing nothing. You're getting prepared. You're working while you're waiting. You're tilling that soil. You're sowing those seeds. Reverend Dr. Todd Neary, sending you many, many blessings. We have a convention coming up very quickly with Rainbow Push. Can you tell us about that?
The 22nd, we're coming to Chicago, to the South Shore Cultural Center. I keep getting South Side. I'm somewhere between the White Sox and the Bulls. We're going to the South Shore Cultural Center, and we're going to be gathering. Reverend Jackson is convening us to talk about new markets. While the pandemic has actually caused some disruption, it has not caused us to pay attention that things are still moving in the business world and the political world, and there are new opportunities that we have to explore to push the conversation around equity. Equity is not just a thing. Equity has to be a commitment in terms of how we engage. And so we're going to look at business opportunities. We're going to look at civic engagement. We're going to look at voter mobilization. We're going to look at the whole platform Reverend Jackson has been advancing for 50 plus years now to make sure that the opportunities we seek are the opportunities that we enjoy. For more information, all you have to do is go to rainbowpush.org. You can track how we're doing with the development of the convention, but you can also register and support the work. We look forward to seeing you as we explore new markets in 2022, June 19th through 22nd, South Shore Cultural Center in Chicago. Be there, and I'll see you there.
Oh, bless your heart. Sending you much, 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 much love. Got my dear, dear friend, Reverend, well, now, you're not a reverend, but you do have a ministerial zeal. Of course, Dr. Santita Knighton, infection preventionist, registered nurse, professor at Case Western Reserve University. Indeed, one of their research clinical scholars. I never thought I'd be part of the story, Dr. Knighton, but I did tell everyone something that you have known since I was diagnosed, that I'd been away because I had COVID. I was very, very blessed. You know, I was very, very blessed because I have been listening to you. My doctor told me when this pandemic first reared its ugly head, she said, take for granted you are going to get it. But what I want to do, what I want to ensure is that when you get it, you will be able to take it. Your body will be strong enough. I want to make sure that your immune system is strong enough. And this was at the end of 2019 because people in the medical community knew that there was a virus and it was bad and it was spreading around the world very rapidly. And so I called Dr. Knighton just like Dr. Verholden did when she found out she had COVID. Because I know that the frontline workers in the medical system, the people upon whom the doctors depend, are nurses. They're registered nurses. And that is what she is. But she's also an infection preventionist. And I was in New York traveling. I was in several places that were wide open, Dr. Knighton. And what is atypical for me is that I did not have a nonstop flight between Chicago and New York. I had to stop in Baltimore. And I didn't like having to stop, because I like to cut down my opportunities to be open to COVID. But, it is what it is. And what I thought was the flu, actually, 4 days in, when my viral load was substantial enough, we found out it was COVID. And I did call you. And I want to thank you for all of your help. I did reach out to my physician first, everybody, because I do have a primary care physician, but I know that I'm very blessed to have that. But how are you today, Dr. Knighton?
I'm doing pretty good, and I'm so happy to see you back. I'm happy that you're healthy. I'm happy that, again, you show many people, that it is possible to be able to make it through this thing if we take care of our bodies. And so I'm happy to just be here and just be talking to you right now.
Oh, I'm happy to have you and to be able to talk to you right now, because that for me is a really, really big thing. But one of the things I don't want to diminish the seriousness of COVID, but I do want people to not be afraid of it. And that was something that, as I started this journey with Dr. Verholden. I said, look, as you come onto the show, I want people to not be frightened of COVID because there's still a 98+% survivability rate. That's real. But what we did find out was what Reverend Tisha Williams told us. She said, COVID is a snitch. We found out, we saw so many gaping holes in our healthcare system, holes that have not been closed, quite frankly. We saw gaping holes in our personal health ecosystems. And now my family, bless their hearts, because they were frightened to death when they found out that I had COVID. But given what we hear, I can understand it. So I was very, very anxious to test negative because I had to call my mother, Dr. Knighton, every couple of hours because she said, this can turn on you and you got to call me, let me know that you're doing okay. So literally every 2 hours, I set my clock. Yes, I still have a clock, everybody, to call her just to let her know that I was okay. I had to call my father several times a day. I had to call all of my siblings. They wanted to know, who are you talking to? If you talk to your doctor, what is she saying? All of that. What would you advise people to do if they find out they're COVID positive? Because we tracked me for bronchitis initially. I didn't even show up COVID positive. And my concern was that I had bronchitis that would convert into pneumonia because that has been a health issue that I've had. It turns out that's not what it was, Dr. Knighton.
Oh, yes. I was going to say, I think the most important thing is to understand your body and understand your lifestyle habits. Meaning, for example, COVID-19 or just honestly feeling out of it, still having, let's say, some sort of inflammatory process, meaning that, like literally, let's say you're draining, meaning that you are having a runny nose, your throat is itchy, you're starting to just have that feeling of just not feeling well, like overall. That's not the time to keep up bad lifestyle habits. So that would be the time of where consuming sugar is not necessarily the best thing because immune system-wise, the sugar is going to lower your immune system. It's not the time to, I would say shy away from exercise. No, it might not be strenuous, but stress could be something that's lowering your immune system too. So a lot of times, for a lot of us, our schedules are so messed up and we're so inundated with the day-to-day that we don't look up and realize, like, oh, man, I'm, like, literally maybe sick because I've been doing too much and I haven't given my body a chance to rest. And so we have to look at lifestyle habits, meaning that if our body is run down, we can't keep running it down with the same habits. If, let's say, for example, that you're starting to feel, let's say, the scratchy throat and you're not feeling well, if you're an alcohol drinker, that would be the time to actually cut back on that. If you are a smoker, that would be the time to say, you know what, I'm going to give this a break because my body is at a compromised state and I need to bring it back up to date or up to code. So I always say start with lifestyle things that we're doing first because a lot of times we're not conscious about what we're eating and what it is that we're doing that could potentially lower our immune system. That would also include like certain meats and certain foods as well. As we know, the 9 times out of 10, your doctor may say, like, go on a bland diet or eat toast, and they tell you to eat all of these bland things, that may not necessarily have chemicals in it. I'm not telling people to, like, get away from eating meat and don't be a meat eater. That's not my message. But please understand that animals contain bacteria, they contain viruses, they contain different things. And so that would actually be the time where you may actually want to cut back on your meat consumption.
Hold on 1 second. I want to get on the other side of this. I do want to just, I know we're going to be talking about Clarence Thomas, and we have a lot of stuff that we're going to touch upon today. But what I want to do is I want Dr. Knighton to finish this because I want you to be empowered. I want you to be armed and ready for not just the COVID fight, but the flu fight, the pneumonia fight. Ladies, I hope you're going to get your exams. Men, I hope you're going to get your exams. There's a lot that we need to do, that we can do to take care of ourselves. But if you get COVID, what do you do? let's talk about it, everybody. And we'll be back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. Please go to YouTube, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, and the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. That is my official page, everybody. Please, please, please be my friend there. I can't take any friend requests on Santita Jackson. That's just a landing page. Please meet me on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. Sending you much love. I'm so glad to be back with you. Back in just a few minutes on WCPT and AM 950 Radio, the Santita Jackson Show. Dave, that's right. Stress is bad for health. Look, and let me tell you, I have been stressed and I have been tired. Oh my gosh, I have been exhausted. And that's part of the reason that I didn't even think about it, because I did not, Dr. Knighton, I didn't lose my taste, my sense of smell. I didn't have a scratchy throat. I came off the air and I had chills. And that had happened to me a couple of weeks before. And I knew that I hadn't gotten enough sleep. That's something that you and Dr. Verholden get on me about all the time.
I think Attorney Jones through.
But, you know, just the nature of the show, a show like this, you generally have a staff. I'm it. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, you know, it's, I get run down, and I've been run down. And so, you know, thankfully I am, I'm on the mend now, everybody. Hey, Carol, my dear sister. Hey, not me. How you doing? And Eric, how you doing, sweetie? All my LA folks out there, sending you much love. Miss Wanda, sending you much love. Give my love to Mr. Corey, please. And hey, Jess Lynn from Michigan. How are you? Hi. And Zenobia, sending everybody, Andre, and all of you so much love today. Thank you so much for tuning in and sending me all of your love and your prayers. But Attorney Daryl Jones.
Morning, Santita.
Hi. You know, I'm going to have a couple more minutes here with Dr. Shanina Knight. And I was telling her, you know, I hadn't shared this with you, but I wanted to wait until I got back on the air. I had COVID. And that was why I was off the air for a couple of weeks. Because the thing is, I didn't lose my sense of taste. I didn't lose my sense of smell. I felt cold when I got off the air a couple of Mondays ago. I had a chill that I could not shake, and I hate being cold. That's just like that's the bane of my existence.
60 seconds.
So I went and took care of that, but I didn't test positive for about 4 days. And I've been traveling and all of that. But you know what? I've been very, very blessed. And my family were frightened to death. And that's, if there's a downside to that, that was it. You know, I mean, I had to call my mother every couple of hours. I had to call my father throughout the day. My father wanted to take me over to Northwestern Hospital. I think I told Dr. Knighton this. I mean, he was almost in tears. He said, "We got to go. We got to go." I was like, "No, we don't have to go. I don't need to go to the hospital. I'm going to be fine." But that's not what he wanted to hear. So there we go. Stand by.
Jackson Show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Talking with Dr. Shanina Knight, an infection preventionist, research clinical scholar, professor at Case Western Reserve University, and registered nurse. We've been talking about COVID. Didn't realize I was going to be part of the story. My parents, thank goodness, survived COVID last year. And I got it, and I've survived it. Praise the Lord, and I thank God for that. But I have to tell you, there are a lot of things that doctors Verholden and Knighton told me to do, things that they just listening to Dr. Knighton really emphasize our health, watching what we eat, understanding the chemicals that are put in the meats and that are sprayed on our fruit and vegetables. All of those things. I was quite frankly, I grew up with a mother who was very conscientious and very conscious of that. But I thank you for bringing that to fore for me again, making sure that I looked at all of the ingredients that are in the vitamins that we take. Because now I've gone back to regular loose powder vitamin C that is only ascorbic acid, which is what vitamin C is, so that I can just cut down on. I wanted to take as many barriers, remove as many barriers between me and the vitamins as I possibly could. But I, just want to share with people what they can do in addition to um, getting the shots, whether you get them or not. If you do not have strong baseline health, Dr. Knighton, you're going to really struggle with this much, much more. I don't care what the variants are. Can you speak to that?
Yes. So, for example, I'm actually going to go off the example that you just used in regards to ascorbic acid, right? So, and it's not recommended that people go out and get this, so that's not what I'm saying. But for somebody, let's say like Santita, that understands that vitamin C is very important to our immune system, and 9 times out of 10, we see the messages on TV or on certain like orange juice bottles of, oh, get your vitamin C because it can boost your immune system. It's a universal thing that we understand that. But what I always express to people is just because you get vitamin C and you boost vitamin C does not mean that it has to be sweet. It does not mean that it has to have certain food colorings. It doesn't have to have certain ingredients. It should just be vitamin C. If vitamin C is a basic vitamin, it should just be vitamin C. And so, yes, just as she mentioned, it comes in a powder form. And so if you are someone, let's say, that is juicing your own, making your own juice, which does contain vitamin C, if it's like a lemon or some sort of citrus, right? It already has vitamin C, but if you're like, I'm going to give myself an extra boost, you don't have to have like the additives that are in it. And so I encourage people when they see, like, let's say the certain medicines that say that it's going to help your immune system if you're coming upon a cold, look at the other ingredients in there that could be potentially tearing your immune system down while you do have the vitamin C in there that's building it up. A lot of times what happens is those chemicals end up balancing each other out to the point of where the medicine really doesn't work. The vitamin C that they say is in there doesn't work as well as it should work in there. The same exact thing happens, for example, with cough syrup. So, for one, a lot of people should not even be taking cough syrups, especially if you have, let's say, blood pressure issues, if you have heart issues. These are actually things that are on the back of the bottle, and it makes this disclaimer that you should be checking with your primary care provider before taking any of these medicines. But a lot of people actually don't. They don't check with their provider before taking them, and that's a problem. That is a huge problem. And so as a result of that, people end up feeling worse than what it is they do better.
What do you want people to know? What should we do? Because I spoke with a friend of mine last night, and he said, how can the queen of not getting COVID get COVID? I said, I never said I'd never get it. I said, as a matter of fact, my doctor told me that I would. I said, what I've tried to do is share with people all the things that we can do to try to protect ourselves from getting it. More than that, if you do get it, how you can survive it. Because quite frankly, the survivability rate is quite high. But it is devastating for so many. And even with these different variants that manifest differently, I don't want anyone not to take this seriously. But I don't want you to be afraid of it. When my mother was at the hospital, when both my parents, they had COVID together and they were in the hospital together, what was disconcerting to her was hearing screaming down the hall. And she asked the nurse, what was it? And the nurse said, this lady just found out she has COVID and she's scared to death. So she was shrieking with all the strength that she had left in her lungs. And I said, I don't want that to be the reality for people. Can you help us with that, Dr. Knighton? Where do we go from here? How do we, because the mask mandates are being lifted, now we are moving on from COVID, although it is still here and it is still spreading. What would you recommend that we do?
So for one, and I know we talk about this all the time, just about being conscious in regards to like the company you keep, conscious in regards to the environment, like meaning like you understand like where you are. But most importantly, it's really knowing what's happening with you even during this time. So I'm located in the Midwest. The weather's changing right now. So, for example, we went from 80 degrees yesterday, it's going to be 70 degrees today, and it's going to be 47 degrees tomorrow. Yeah. We all know how that affects our immune system with the up and down in regards to the weather. Well, with us knowing that and knowing that that is the absolute possibility of what is going to transpire with our bodies, we want to make sure, like, hey, if I know that it's a possibility with the weather, am I dressing warmer? Am I also making sure that I understand that there's going to be others around me that are sick? And if they are sick, then that absolutely means that I run the risk of being sick. And so if I run the risk of being sick, maybe I should be wearing a mask in indoor settings, especially when it's cold, especially like when it's coming off of one of these, like let's say cold spells, going back into the warmer season, going to the warmer weather. So there's just certain things that we should just be thinking about, and that would be the time like right now. And so I know people are saying, oh, well, COVID's gone and the weather's gone away, but it's these times where people actually get caught up at the end of the season because the weather is still undergoing a transition. So I always say start there. The other piece of it is make sure you are priming your immune system. So if there are, let's say, antioxidants and anti-inflammatories such as ginger that you can put in your diet on a regular basis, those are some of the things that will help your body. Is it going to protect you from getting COVID? No, but at least you know that if you were to encounter COVID, the common cold, someone that's swerving down if they sneeze with just allergies and it was COVID, at least you know your body's going to be somewhat protected to be able to fight it off. And that's in addition. That's whether you're vaccinated or not. You want to make sure that your body is primed.
You know what? Let me take the opportunity now to thank you for being a guide for me and so many others. Everybody here loves you, and I love you, and I want to thank you for sticking with me through all of this. And because boy, oh boy, I have to tell you, my family, they were so frightened. God bless them. But I guess if I'd been on the other side of it, I would have been too, because I just didn't, our parents' battle with COVID was no fun. Yes.
I was going to say, too, the one thing that you have to think about as well is, like, your siblings went through it with watching your parents, and being frightened about them. And your parents actually went through the actual experience of having it, so they had a different lived experience, right, than what you had. And so you know that it came all out of love, and it came out of concern in regards to their concern for you, having experienced it, and also being a child, watching after their parents, even too, just with you had high concern in regards to how well they were doing in regards to recovery. And so, that's honestly what it comes down to, is your mom is just thinking about what her experience was. I'm like, oh, I don't want my baby to go through this. So I know that they're happy to see that you had a different experience and that you have been preparing. And that, God willing, because they did go through it, you had some more tools in your toolbox to say, like, you know what, these are the things I need to do so I can prevent it, and should I encounter it, these are the things that I also need to do. And that's why I say we as people need to talk more, because even with Dr. Deb, she got on air. I told her about the incentive parameter. I told her about her body craving sugar. Yes. So you were able to take all of the things that she was able to do and build upon that in your toolkit. And that's what science does, So as we learn more, we teach each other more, and we survive better.
Well, you know what? I'm sending you much love. I got my oximeter. My oximeter reading stayed at 98% the whole time. That's nothing but God. Nothing but God. And my low to normal temperature, body temperature, the whole time. And I just thank God for you. And that's why I bring Dr. Shanina Knighton and Dr. Deborah Verholden to you, because you need to be empowered. Many of us do not have primary care physicians, or we don't, for a whole lot of it. It's expensive. And I just want everyone to be as healthy as they can be. And we need to fight for universal single payer, so everybody has equal access to equal high quality health care. Healthcare is not a privilege, it's a right, and we have to work on changing that. I love you, Dr. Knight, and stay right there, because you know what? We're going to talk about Clarence Thomas. with the chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, one of the nation's leading civil rights lawyers, Attorney Darrell Jones. I was struck by this, Attorney Darrell Jones, because we've been looking at Justice Clarence Thomas of late, because Justice Clarence Thomas, we've been looking at his conflicts of interest. He and his wife, Virginia Thomas, who is a very prominent conservative activist. And, quite frankly, the fact that she's a conservative does not bother me. It's her activism and how it bleeds into her husband's work. That is a problem. And quite frankly, if she were on the other side, on my side of the spectrum, I'd have an issue with that. I think that you got to have some line that you do not cross. Then you ought to make principle-based decisions, particularly since this is the highest court in the land. Well, last Thursday, he made a proclamation, a celebrated ruling against school segregation. And he said that it was wrongly decided. You got to help me to understand what happened last Thursday and what is his thinking, Attorney Darrell Jones, because this is unsettling to me. I don't understand it. I mean, wait a minute. Desegregation, man, you went to Yale on desegregation and on affirmative action. Seriously?
Well, Santita, you're asking me to dissect the mind of Clarence Thomas. I'm going to tell you up front, I'm not going to be able to do that. There's a lot that's going on there, and a lot of conflicting thoughts and actions that are going on there. But, what happened in that case, and what the case actually involved and evolved from the decision regarding Puerto Rico and whether or not the SSI benefits could be extended to a person that lived in New York and moved to Puerto Rico. And in essence, in the dissent in that case, Clarence Thomas wrote a separate dissent. In that dissent, he argued that when the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment is applied, that it only applies to states, and therefore Puerto Rico shouldn't be included, and then went on beyond that to argue that in the Brown versus Board of Education case, that there was a companion case called Bowling versus Sharp. Mm-hmm. And in essence, in that Bowling versus Sharp case, what differentiated it from everything else was that it applied to territories, or in this particular situation, the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. The question was, could the federal government force Washington, D.C. to desegregate? Because Washington, D.C., much like Puerto Rico, is not a state. And so their argument was that with the 14th Amendment, the federal government, could do it because they were states that they were doing through the 14th Amendment with equal protection. But when it came to the territories, that the federal government, Clarence Thomas was arguing, was limited, and that the Fifth Amendment should not be used in the Due Process Clause to be able to desegregate Washington, D.C., or to provide services, equal protection services to the territories, those that are not states of the United States. So, in essence, he is saying that Bowling versus Sharp, which was one of the companion cases with Brown versus the Board of Education, wrongly decided, and that the District of Columbia should not have been forced to desegregate their schools. That's the argument that he's throwing out, and he was also using that same analogy to say that Puerto Rico, people in Puerto Rico and people in the Virgin Islands, people in various U.S. territories don't have all the fundamental rights of those that are living in states, formalized states of the United States. It's just an incredible argument. It comes out of their Federalist Society, which is the super conservative think tank that Greenquist and this whole conservative mindset comes out of. The scary part behind it is that it doesn't stop with the analysis dealing with education, right? It's going to spill over, as you see here, right, with the Puerto Rico case. It's going to spill over to what protections are required of people that live in the territories as opposed to live stateside. And it's that strict reading of the Constitution that they're trying to put in place, such that they will start to dismantle. They could dismantle, many of the discrimination based on sex, discrimination based on sexual preference, discrimination based on gender. All of that will become open out. So, it's an extension of that conservative platform, of that conservative mindset of trying to minimize those that have access to what they call the strict reading of the U.S. Constitution. So that in a big nutshell is what Clarence Thomas, Justice Thomas, was doing with the case that was just decided and the arguments that are being made.
Where could this go? Because we have a 6-3 majority, and he's the oldest serving justice, the longest serving justice. And he really, in many respects, serves a very special role on the court now. I mean, he's, if you will, he's the elder statesman of the court. This decision seems to be way out the box, but it is a Federalist Society decision. And these conservatives do have these think tanks, Attorney Darrell Jones, and they do run the judicial system. I mean, they just do. I mean, what could be the fallout of this decision? Because Bakke started the stripping away of affirmative action. I mean, it seemed like and everyone knew that was going to be a really, really big decision. But that happened almost 50 years ago. What could this decision portend going down the street for all of us?
Well, going down the street for all of us, what this decision does is that it's going to open up and put in play a lot of the sexism, a lot of the homophobia that's out there in terms of limiting the courts, and the courts saying that that there may not be those protections that are there for the territory as opposed to the states of our country. And I think very interestingly, one thing to note is that this was an 8-1 decision. The dissenting person on the major part of this was Sotomayor. So, it was an 8-1 decision that way. The scarier part comes when we start seeing the justices adopting and putting into writing these positions that are coming out of the Federalist Society that are trying to limit access to fundamental rights that we have here in the country. And so, those what we usually call the fundamental rights of education, all this other stuff, they then become part of the target from the Federalist Society. And so that's a major concern with regards to the fallout from what Justice Thomas has written. Fortunately, Justice Thomas is the only one that took the argument to this degree. In addition, in the argument, he says, well, I'm not really certain that I'm doing the right thing. This is just sort of a sketch of where I think this may be going, but I'm not really certain. So, it's unsettling to have a justice do that rather than speak in certain language, and that's what we're accustomed to. But it's a scary piece because we don't want to open that door to going down the road of certainly arguing the life and liberty and probably all the due process rights of all of our citizens here in the United States, and that's what I'm concerned that this decision could potentially do.
Well, I'm really concerned because it stayed so far underneath the radar. It's something that no one is talking about. And the fact that you have him, basically saying that school segregation, desegregation was wrongly decided. Upon what basis? I mean, just help me to get inside of his thinking, because I'm like, oh, dare I say, soon to be justice designee, Ketanji Brown Jackson. I just don't understand him, to paraphrase her. That's what she said. I don't understand you. She said, wait. You sound like my parents. You got some of the same basic values, but you took a turn somewhere, and I don't understand you. Help us to understand this thinking, please.
Wow. I think that Justice Thomas is one of those people that he's made it, right? He's considered to have made it. He's at the top of his pedigree, the top of his game. And he's just cutting out a lot of the roots that got him there. And that's what this is an example of. Because what we know is that his thinking in this case is saying that if you're not if you're not part of a state of the United States, you're only part of one of the territories, then you're not given certain rights, certain privileges that he had because he came out of the state of Georgia. So you're not entitled to the same rights that he had. That's the under basis of the thinking. And, it's part of the thought process that is just sort of evil at the intent, meaning we want to hurt people, to not have people have access to what everybody else should have access, not have access to that American dream, which is what he was denied access to for so long. And then when he was provided it, was able to take advantage of it on so many levels. Now he's turning around, having taken advantage of that education, to say, I don't want everyone else to have the access to the advantages that I have had. And that's what this decision is saying, is that he doesn't want people to have access to the advantages that he has had. And, the thought process, I think, within some of the conservative mindsets is, raise the walls, close the borders, don't let anybody else in. We've got our stuff, let's just protect it from everybody else. That's part of the mindset of what I see coming out of Clarence Thomas with this, is that I've got let me raise up the walls and exclude as many people now as I can that were in the position that I was in and need help. By doing that, I somehow protect what I have and protect my family and my kids or whatever. That's the mindset that's coming out of Clarence Thomas from this decision. And it's scary. It's very scary because we think of America as being this great open system where everybody is welcome. What is it? Send me your poor, your huddles, all the stuff. That's not what this decision reflects. That is not what this thinking reflects. It reflects the exact opposite, almost a protectionist type of viewpoint where you're saying, don't let anybody else in. Don't give anybody else the rights that we have. Let's limit access to the United States with regards to all those fundamental rights. That's what this decision is saying. That's what his thought process is in putting this together, in my belief.
Do you see the court going in that direction? I mean, although this was an 8-1 decision, he still has tremendous influence, Attorney Jones. I've got 1 minute.
Yeah, he has tremendous influence. I don't see the court going in this direction. I think that Chief Judge Roberts is probably a good indication of it. No other justice signed on to this piece that he's now written up within his dissent. He's the lone man on the island. But the scary part is we also know that he's the flag bearer for the conservatives and the Federalist Society on the court. So he's the one that's going to try to pull them all over to this viewpoint. Will they get there? I don't think so. But it's scary to know that someone at the table is trying to pull everybody over to that side of the seat.
Everybody, what do you think about that? I think, we've got to pay attention. We've got to pay attention to Clarence Thomas. Got to pay attention. But in the meantime, we've got to pay attention to what's happening with U.S. police. U.S. police have killed nearly 600 people in traffic stops since 2017. Black people are 13% of the population. 28% of those killed in these traffic stops are Black people. What is going on? And guess what? It happens less frequently at night. Something they call the veil. That's right. Something that they call the veil that shields Black people. The veil of darkness helps Black people at nighttime. This doesn't happen as often at night. Wow. What is that saying, everybody? What is that saying? Think Sandra Bland. Think Philando Castile. Just keep on thinking. Think about, is it Patrick Lyoya? Just think. He was shot for a traffic stop, and guess what? He was shot in the back of the head while on the ground. Why did he have to be shot in the back of the head? What is going on, everybody? And I promise you, I was talking to a few people yesterday. We're going to have some panel discussions on violence, on the violence that we see in America today. Dr. King said that the bombs that we drop overseas will explode at home. We're so militarist. I don't think we understand how that shapes our culture. And I'm the granddaughter of veterans. I spent a lot of my summers on the Army base because I would go to Virginia with my brothers and later on my sister to go visit our mother's parents. And as veterans, and as my grandmother worked at the VA, we would go to the pool at the base. She would shop at the base. She loved the order of military life. So that I'm not objecting to that. What I am objecting to is militarism, over militarism, when we put diplomacy on the back burner and war on the front burner. We've got to think about that and how that impacts and shapes our thinking. U.S. police have killed nearly 600 people in traffic stops since 2017. 100 persons a year. That's a person every 3 days. That's a lot of folks. It's a lot of folks. Let's talk about it on the Santita Jackson Show. I want you to continue to call me at 773-763-9278. I want to hear your voices today. 773-763-9278. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. Ooh. Daryl?
Hey, Santita.
How are you?
I'm doing well. No complaints at all.
Oh, look, I hear you. I don't either. I don't have any complaints. Oh my gosh. I have none. But I am going to take a little nap once I get off the air here so I can get myself back together here. How about that? One of the things that I saw, and I guess it would be my healthcare team saw, not getting enough rest dooms you in terms of your health. Everybody, I cannot tell you enough how important it is for you to get your sleep. You've got to get your rest. You've got to get your rest. And I have not been doing that. And I paid a price for that. So everybody, please take care of yourselves. Hope you're taking care of yourself, Daryl.
Attorney Fancher, Attorney Sinatra.
Okay. Attorney Sinat?
Hi, good morning. How are everyone doing?
How are you feeling?
Oh, so much better, but still recovering.
All right. Attorney Fancher?
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing just fine, thank you.
It's wonderful hearing your voice. We've got Attorney Daryl Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, of course, a brilliant civil rights lawyer, and Attorney Mark Fancher, National Conference of Black Lawyers, brilliant civil libertarian. And we have got Attorney Anastasia Sinat. I have another story for you, Anastasia, that I'm going to send to you. And I'm going to send it to you and to all of you here. In fact, that talks about the Biden administration's cruel and unnecessary jailing of asylum seekers. But that's another story for another day. As we're welcoming more Ukrainians to the United States, and I certainly do applaud that. But we're still pushing back brown and black people. Haitians don't have a prayer coming here. People who they're letting Ukrainians in at the Mexican border, but they're not letting the Haitians and the people from South and Central America in. That's just crazy. And that's off. That's off. And we have to talk about it. Hello. Yeah. The other people are not going to talk about that here. But that's why, I've, shared with you, Anastasia. That's why as people come to the United States, you've got to get involved in the civil rights movement, because there is an unbroken line from Jamestown to Miami, to Houston, to Dallas, to all these borders. Reverend Jackson often says we were brought here on an international policy. So international politics is something we really do understand. But you got to deal with this American experience, because you're trying to be a part of it. And now you're seeing where you're getting blocked from it. How about that? Is that crazy? Whew. Anyway, we're going to get to all these police killings, everybody. So I'm really glad that you all are here today. And I'm glad that all of you have joined me. And yes, my health has been restored. I thank God for that. And I thank you for your prayers. Thank you for being with us today. And hey, you can recover from COVID. I am proof positive of that. And I've been very, very blessed. That having been said, you got to take care of yourselves, everybody. Please take care of yourselves. Please watch what you eat. Watch how you eat. Try to, when you get your fruit and your vegetables, clean them off, because you've got pesticides that are very dangerous that are on our fruit and vegetables. We just really have to be careful. I think that we're not clear on a lot of the unseen dangers that lurk in our lives, and we've got to take care of ourselves. So please take care of yourselves and work on boosting that immune system. How about that? So All right, all right, all right. Everybody, I see my morning stars are talking today. Dave Dowling, Mark Hay, hey. What'd you say? Clarence Thomas to Herschel Walker. It feels like there are more black male right wingers than ever. You know what, Mark? Black people tend to be not tend, we are socially conservative. Socially conservative. I think that Republicans would have more black people in their ledger if they did not have these racist policies. I mean, if they just not were not so overtly racist, because because that's our thinking, and that's our socially that's where we are. So I mean, it's a mix of things. And thank you. I'm glad I'm better too. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So everybody, why don't you call us at 773 763 9278 773 763 9278. And let's talk about all these police shootings. How about that? Let me see. Okay. All right. There we go. Okay, coming up, everybody. So, but I'm glad you all are with us today. Thank you, Attorney Sanat and Attorney Jones and Attorney Fancher. Thank you. I reach out to Attorney Fancher in the middle of the night. Bless his heart. He's always so sweet. Stand by.
We both should turn in earlier.
Oh man, you know what? I try, but I'm
10
gonna.
seconds.
You'll see. I'm gonna do it. You'll hear from me a little earlier today, a lot earlier. But I'm just always looking for stories. Always looking for things.
Change the world, change the world, change the world. Yes, we can change the world. We can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. I'm Santita Jackson, and yes, I am back. And I'm so glad to be with you, everybody. I want to thank you for joining me on WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station at AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you on my Facebook page, on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. All of you, I have so many, really more than 1,000 people who want to be my friends, and I am so honored. But please go over to the Santita Jackson and Friends page. That is where I can receive friends. And if you would, please like and subscribe on the Santita Jackson Show, the YouTube channel. Please go over there and watch us if you don't mind. I'd love to have you over there. We want to grow that channel. I want to give a special shout out. Thank you. Special words of gratitude to Andrea Darlis and Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson. Andrea is one of the nation's leading journalists. And whenever I cannot do the show, I always feel completely secure with the show in her hands. She is a brilliant journalist, very sensitive woman, very broad, and just a wonderful human being. And I want to thank her for all of her support. I love you, Andrea, and I thank you. Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson, I love you and thank you. Watching his growth as a host in this space has just been something thrilling to see. And, whenever I leave the show and I have you all sit in, I feel secure. Now, everybody, I did work through COVID. Yes, I did. Yes, I did produce these shows. But it was so helpful because I knew that if I needed to, I could have just given it to them and they could have just run with it because they are absolutely able and capable. And so I want to send them Andrea Darlis and Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson, whose show on WCPT I would encourage you to listen to after Keep Hope Alive, of course. It's at 9:00 on Sundays right here on WCPT. Everybody, let's get to some of these headlines. As we talk about U.S. police, they've killed nearly 600 people in traffic stops since 2017. What is going on? Black people, 28% of those who are victimized by this, although we're only 13% of the population. Black and brown people are more likely to be killed by the police at a traffic stop. That was this young man up in Michigan, shot in the head on the ground after the traffic stop. What was the point? We got to talk about that, everybody. Got to talk about it. So let's get to some of these headlines so we can get on to the rest of the show. Chicago will have a high of 55 degrees after all of this warm weather that we've had, and it will be cloudy today. Minneapolis, St. Paul, a high of 38 degrees. It will be cloudy. Keep those sweaters out, everybody, and those and the scarves. This is the Midwest. It could snow tomorrow. But then again, we might be able to go to the beach too. The Bulls are on the brink of elimination. Come on, Bulls, you got to come on through. I know they're playing the Bucks, the world champs, everybody. Of course, the Bulls were beaten by the Bucks. The Bucks 119, the Bulls 95. The Bucks are leading that series 3-1. Come on, Bulls, come on through. You got to come on through. And in the rest of the NBA playoffs, of course, we had the Pelicans who were triumphant over the Suns, 118-103. The Heat triumphant over the Hawks, 110-86. And then the Nuggets 126 and the Warriors 121. In Major League Baseball, well, the Pirates beat the Cubs 4-3. And the Twins were triumphant over the White Sox 6-4. I'm dedicating the show today to Senator Orrin Hatch. Why am I doing that? Well, the first album that I did, he produced it. That's right. The conservative senator from Utah. He heard me sing the national anthem at the Clinton inauguration in 1997. He called my brother, Jesse, who was Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., who was in Congress at the time. He said, "Do you think your sister would mind singing some of my music?" And I had heard that he was a really, really wonderful musician, and I was honored. And I have to tell you, his sense of decorum, what a gentleman he was, even with his political disagreements with you, because he and Ted Kennedy were best friends. He was one of the most decent, kind, wonderful human beings I've ever met. And I thank God that he was and will always be a part of my life. His staff were all unfailingly polite and kind to me. And indeed, in some of the most difficult times of my life, he would call and pray with me. Yes, that was Senator Orrin Hatch. And so a great man of faith, a great man of God, a wonderful human being with a wonderful wife and family. And I thank God that God gave him length of years and the ability to serve. God bless you, Orrin Hatch, Senator Orrin Hatch. I will always, always, always love and appreciate you. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken announced that U.S. diplomats will return to Ukraine this week, a move officials are characterizing as a strong message of solidarity from the United States. This, of course, is reported by CNN. Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin traveled to the Ukrainian capital to meet over the weekend with the president of Ukraine, Zelensky. So we'll see where all of this goes, everybody, as we're supplying weapons and as we're training many of the Ukrainian, some of their top-level soldiers here in the United States, in Mississippi, and around the country. Emmanuel Macron has won France's presidential election, making him the first French leader to be re-elected in 20 years. He fended off a historic challenge from far-right candidate Marine Le Pen after securing 58.5% of yesterday's runoff vote. Many people now consider him to be the leader of Europe. Everybody. The Biden administration will renew its push with lawmakers to secure COVID-19 funding when Congress returns from its recess this week, a White House official told CNN. A $10 billion funding package is currently on the table, which the Biden administration says is urgently needed to continue the federal COVID-19 response, everybody. You remember Mark Meadows, the former chief of staff for President Donald Trump. Well, he is always talking about voting fraud, but guess what? He's registered to vote in multiple states. Did you know that? That's right. Until last week, he was simultaneously registered to vote in not one, not two, wait for it, everybody, 3 states, and is still registered in 2, according to the Washington Post. I think that he has got some explaining to do, but good news is this: Mary McLeod Bethune, civil rights pioneer. Indeed, she was part of the so-called kitchen cabinet of FDR. She was one of the closest advisors to Eleanor Roosevelt, the founder of Bethune-Cookman College down in Daytona Beach, Florida, someone who gave us her last will and testament, someone who has lifted up our people for more than a century, God rest her soul. She will now be in Statuary Hall. That movement to get African Americans, to get civil rights leaders inside of Statuary Hall, actually was started by Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. When he went to Congress, he found that when you went into Statuary Hall, which is the Hall of Heroes, if you will, in the middle of the Capitol, there were no black people there. But most of the people who were there were Confederate heroes. That's right. And many, if not most of the statues on Capitol Hill are of Confederate heroes. You can't make this stuff up. He noticed that, and so he said, you know what, we need to honor Rosa Parks. And in fact, I'm going to create a statue so that will be bigger than any in the hall, and that is what he did. And he was able to, he looked for a sponsor on the Senate side because you needed that, and Senator John Kerry said, I'll be your sponsor. He worked with Congressman Jackson, and they established Rosa Parks in that hall. And now we're beginning to get African Americans in Statuary Hall, and now we're going to have Mary McLeod Bethune there. And that is the way it ought to be, everybody. All right, let's get right to it. U.S. police, according to the Mapping Police Violence Study, have killed nearly 600 people in traffic stops since 2017. Now, mind you, everybody, this doesn't happen at night. Under the veil of darkness, Black people are protected because you can't really see who's in the car. But 10% of the 1,100 people killed by police each year involve traffic violations. Black people are 13% of the population, with 28% of those who are killed by the police. Now, this has been averaging a little more than 100 people per year since 2018. 97 deaths, deadly traffic stops in 2017, 114 in 2018, 117 in 2019, 119 in 2020, 117 in 2021, and 25 so far this year. So what is going on? How does this happen? We have been told that if we comply, we will not die. That's not happening. And we've been looking at what happened in Grand Rapids. This young man was shot in the back of the head after the traffic stop. What is happening, everybody? Call me at 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. Joining attorney Darrell Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, is, of course, attorney Anastasia Sanat, the president of the Haitian American Lawyers Association of Illinois, and the National Conference of Black Lawyers. Of course, we've got attorney Mark Fancher. Attorney Mark Fancher, let's start with you. Because, of course, we've had this, everyone's been marching in Grand Rapids, Michigan, because this young man, it turns out he was shot in the back of the head by an officer while on the ground. And now, this is after the traffic stop. You got to explain what's going on.
Sure. What we're talking about is the killing of Patrick Loyoya, who is an immigrant from Congo. And on April 4th, which was 54 years to the day after Dr. King was shot, he was pulled over by a Grand Rapids police officer purportedly because his license plate didn't match the vehicle. The officer got out of the car after Loyoya got out of the car and raised up his hands asking, what's the problem? The officer started yelling at him to get back in the car. He seemed confused by the direction, so the officer approached him. They had some exchange. He was asking for his license. Loyoya said that the license was inside of the car. He opened up the door and then just seemed to be very confused about what was going on. The officer continued to shout at him and bark at him and give him orders. And then he said, you don't understand English? What's going on? And so Loyoya, at least from what I saw, appeared to look so confused that he told himself, I just need to get out of this situation. I need to remove myself. So he turned and he began to walk slowly away from the officer. At that moment, the entire thing could have been avoided if the officer had just let him walk away. But instead, what the officer did is he grabbed him. Once he grabbed him, Loyoya began to struggle in an attempt to get away, not to attack the officer, but to try and get away. And he did get away briefly. He began to flee, and the officer gave chase essentially tackled him, and they began an extended wrestling match on someone's front yard. It became very, very heated, and at one point, the officer removed his taser and was attempting to taser Loyola. Loyola grabbed the taser in an attempt to try and prevent himself from being tasered. The officer's yelling and screaming at him, so finally the officer gets the upper hand. Loyola is face down on the ground. The officer is straddling Loyola, and what he does is he very carefully and deliberately reaches into his holster, pulls out his pistol, places it on the back of Loyola's head, and at point-blank range fires a shot. So there has been much discussion since this killing. My employer is the ACLU of Michigan, and we have been very much involved in those discussions. And one of the points that we continue to make is that the idea of pursuing someone on foot is a stupid idea, it's a dangerous idea, and it should not be part of any police department's procedural routine. In fact, the Chicago Police Department has a policy on foot pursuits, which is more progressive than many. Baltimore has one which would suggest that in a stop like this, it's likely that the officer would not have even been permitted to have pursued Loyola when he tried to run away. And the idea is that if someone is leaving, if they've been stopped for a vehicle registration concern, or even if they're concerned about this being a car thief, or for something having to do with licensing or something like this, and they've given no indication whatsoever up to this point that they pose a danger to anyone, then there's no harm in letting this person go. Especially when you have possession of the person's vehicle. And not only in this case that they had the vehicle, but they had Loyola's passenger, who apparently knew him very well. So the chances are that with a little bit of work, good police work, if he had run away, there would have been no problem in locating him, and under more calm, less stressful circumstances, engaging with him about whatever the problem is with respect to his vehicle and registration. People should not die because they have a vehicle registration problem. The death penalty has never been contemplated for a crime of that kind. And certainly, in the worst of cases, the death penalty is not imposed summarily on the street by an officer who makes an arbitrary decision that this person must die. So, it's a very complex and nuanced situation, but the other thing that I think is at play here is the fact that you're dealing with a police culture that compels behavior of this type by the officer. We don't know what the officer was thinking. In fact, at this point, we don't even know his name, and we've been demanding that his name be disclosed. But it is entirely possible that this officer, who was alone and without a partner, when he saw that Loyola was trying to get away, became concerned about what his colleagues were going to think on the force. That when I get back to the precinct or the headquarters, and they find out that I let this guy get away, I'm never going to hear the end of it. And then when he gets himself in an even worse predicament, where Loyola is trying to get his taser, and he's concerned about, well, if he gets it, then and this gets out, then I'm really going to have a problem. And he finds himself just functioning as a soldier, which is really, the essence of the culture that exists in policing in many departments. That these are combat-ready soldiers who go into communities of color and patrol them as though they're patrolling enemy territory. They treat citizens, people who are lawful residents, as though they're enemy combatants, and they go to war against them. And this is a culture that has to be broken down. And the only way to do it is to get rid of the soldier cops and replace them with people who are prepared to respond to the types of nonviolent kinds of emergencies that are the dominant part of the types of emergencies that police officers are asked to respond to, involving mental health problems, drug overdoses, broken down cars, those kinds of things. You don't need soldiers to respond to those kinds of emergencies.
Well, how is it that you're not able to get the name of the police officer? I mean, what is that about?
We don't know. The police leadership has refused to disclose it, and the most that they have said is that it would in some way complicate the investigation. But it's not much. There's not much more clarity about that than that. The community is demanding it. There are demonstrations where they're demanding it. The point has been made that in any other crime, when there is a suspect or even a quote-unquote person of interest, that the names are frequently put out there for the purpose of finding out whether there are other people who have some information or some knowledge that would be helpful to the investigation. In a case like this, a big question that people have is, why was this officer running Loyola's plate in the first place? Under the Fourth Amendment requires that you don't stop anybody unless you've got probable cause that they have committed a traffic offense of some kind, or you've got reasonable suspicion that they are engaged in some type of more serious crime. But just to randomly run someone's plate if he's given no indication that he's violating a traffic law or something like that. So if it is racial, if he's running the plates of people because of race, and people have had other experiences with this particular officer that they suspect involved racial profiling, then it seems to many of us that would be a useful thing to the investigation. And so, we're very interested and concerned to know.
Attorney Sanat, how do you read this situation, which is really part of a trend, quite frankly?
Actually, I wanted to kind of touch on the fact that Patrick Loyola was an immigrant, an African immigrant from the Democratic Republic of Congo. There's about 8,000 immigrants from Congo in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and their official language is French. So I gloss over the fact that he really may not have understood the officer's command, because in fact his first language was not English. And so when we're thinking about what happens to Africans and Caribbeans that come to the United States that are not accustomed to having to, they're not given a lesson, right? When you see them, don't do anything, right? Because that's not what happens in their country. When they see police officers, their police officers do bad things as well. But I'm just saying, you can't really understand everything when English is not your first language. So I agree that police have been militarized. I believe that the police culture is something that we need to address. I think that training is really what's needed here, because I think a lot of the police officers have come from a mentality that shoot and kill is the best option. And they should be getting training that is opposite of that, where respect and dignity and treatment for others is the best way to handle a situation, particularly at a traffic stop. Just recently in Chicago, there was a traffic stop and one of the police officers was shot at. Now, I understand that it's possible that they can encounter someone with a gun and it could go that way. However, more likely than not, they're not going to be encountered with someone with that level of violence. So we do need to retrain the thinking of these police officers. But also, I believe that the African community in Grand Rapids, Michigan, is now doing a better job of trying to educate their community and letting them know what African Americans and Black people in America who have been here for years already know, which is you can't do certain things because of the color of your skin.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about more of that when we get back on the Santita Jackson Show, because there are the Black rules. And Black people, when they come to the United States, and brown people who present as people of color, when they come to the United States, they need to understand the Black rules. And too often, you're not taught the Black rules. We saw this with Amadou Diallo. We've seen it over and over and over again. Because this tends not to happen to white immigrants. No, it doesn't. It happens to Black immigrants. But if you don't understand the Black rules in the United States, it's going to happen over and over and over again. You got to understand what the struggle means. Got to understand that. This young man was shot in the back of the head by the officer while on the ground, and we can't get the name of the officer. The ACLU of Michigan can't get it. What is that? Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. I cannot wait to hear from you, Attorney Jones, because I just want to know, why is it that U.S. police have killed nearly 600 people in traffic stops since 2017? Basically 100 a year, 97 in 2017, and just continues to go on and on and on and on. What's going on? Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. All right, beautiful people. How are you? Are you there? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. But thank you for bringing that up, Anastasia. But, you know, when you come to the United States as a Black person, you got to understand Emmett Till. You know, I mean, and because, you know, my Jewish friends, wherever they go around the world, they key into anti-Semitism, you know, but, you know, we get confused. I mean, because I've seen Black people get to Europe. I'm like, a friend of mine, a family friend, was in school in Brussels. Now, she comes from the Congo. I said, well, first of all, what were you doing in school in Brussels? She talked about, and this is just a few years ago, she had an awful time there. I said, there's no way I'd go to school. King Leopold's home. There's no way I'd go to school there. No way. I mean, I can't even. But, you know, Black people in the United States of America, Anastasia, and Attorney Fancher and Attorney Jones have carved out something called Black America. And whatever we have, we do and do not have, we do have an HBCU system. And a lot of the people who ended up leading the African revolutions in the 50s and 60s, my parents met them in school at North Carolina A&T. You know, I mean, you had these African leaders who were leading the revolutions who actually went to Lincoln University. They went to the HBCUs. And there's a reason. I mean, there's something to be said for that. But now we don't do that. And so you get to Ukraine and you got a war that breaks out and they will not let you on that train or that bus. And people are like, I can't believe it. I'm like, you better believe it. These folks fight with each other in Europe on a regular. So you know how they feel about you after you've been colonized. Yeah, y'all, I'm saying it. I'm speaking the quiet part out loud. Hello.
60 seconds.
Got to have these discussions. So anyway, stand by, everybody. Oh, do we have Chaparral up?
No, I actually just texted you. I tried her twice. I didn't get an answer.
Oh, so. Okay. No worries. Okay, now I see. Okay. Well, we'll try. Let's see if we can get her at the end of the segment. If not, that's all right. We've got Laura from Atlanta and Noel from the South Side. Okay, stand by.
Yep, I'm still there.
Lorraine, thank you for reaching out to me while I was on my bed of affliction. I love you, girl. Thank you. She just couldn't wait. She was like, Santita, what's going on? No. I said, girl, I'm going to be okay. I'm coming back. And, well, the Lord brought me back. How about that? That's how that works. I love you, girl. I really do. And I love all of you. Michael Ann, I love you. Thank you. Stand by. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I want you to meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook. That is my official page, everybody. Please like me there and continue to become my friend over there. And Of course, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. Get on over there and let's continue to grow that. U.S. police have killed nearly 600 people in traffic stops since 2017. Black people are 13% of the population, 28% of those killed by the police. But something happens at night. Black drivers are pulled over by police less at night when their race is obscured by what is called, according to Stanford University study, the veil of darkness. Everyone's been talking about what happened in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Patrick Lyoya, young man killed by the police after a traffic stop on the ground. Attorney Anastasi Senat, president of the Haitian American Lawyers Association of Illinois, said, wait a minute, remember his first language was French. He was Francophone. We have to think about that. But we're making more of an effort to help Black people who immigrate to the United States to really understand what the Black rules are in the United States. That's important. We've had attorney Mark Fancher. He, of course, is with the National Conference of Black Lawyers, but he's also with the ACLU of Michigan. He heads their Racial Justice Project. We're talking about Patrick Lyoya and what's happening with people all over the country who are being killed by at a traffic stop. Attorney Daryl Jones, before we go to the callers, a traffic stop? You die? And we all tell our children, I don't have any children physically, but I have godchildren, I have nieces and nephews, and comply. But when we comply, we die, Daryl. I mean, and if you're running away from the police, Dante, right? You don't need to get shot by the police. Oh, oops, wait a minute, I thought it was my taser. Are you serious? Come on, what's going on here?
Yeah, Santita, it's really just a shocking, experience to go through all of this and watch all of this unfold. But, I think I go back to something that Mark Fancher was saying and that she had said a little earlier. Part of this comes from the initial devaluation of Black life. Mm-hmm. And if the country is founded on a devaluation of the value of Blacks in our society, then it becomes much easier for them, for non-Blacks, to treat us violently. And I think that is what has creeped in and goes through the policing. That is still there. So it still exists. And so that's a part of what's in the back of the mind, the psyche, that ends up coming forward in these situations. And it's interesting because, the view that many of the police officers will take is that, the African American, for whatever reason, is prone to be more violent. They got to take stronger action, all of which are just falsely predicated. But this is much of the learning and much of the teaching that has gone in through their experience here in the country. What's interesting is that a lot of folks say, well, that's the reason that we have the training, and that the training is to address this. Well, who's training them? Right? It's the people that have the same value system, the same structure. So it's not a training issue. It is an issue of the evolution of what has happened from the very foundation of the country. Now, what do we do about it, right? The one thing that we know is that we have consistently been of the mindset of as Mark Fancher and the ACLU in Michigan are doing, are calling it out and having to first address it. And that's a large part of what's happening right now, is that it's being constantly called out. We should not have to, as African Americans, we should not be in fear every time the lights of a police car come on, and we've done nothing wrong and they're pulling us over. It's whether or not we're going to survive this stop. And when you add into that the other factors, such as language barriers for some of the Africans that are here from different countries that are in the Americas, that becomes even more scary, because now you have the language barrier, you have the color barrier, you have all of this that's going on in this encounter. And that's not to take away from, the police officer's experience, because I understand, I've been a prosecutor, I've dealt with a lot of police officers. I understand that their most, weird encounters, the encounter of the unknown, where they're pulling a police car for some reason, and they don't know what they're going to experience. But by the same token, we do know that there's this differentiation that exists with regards to how Black people are handled at those stops with regards to the violence and how it ends in killing. So, a lot of that is there, and we've got to continue to address it. We've got to continue to fight. I mean, Dante Wright, Felicia Castillo, all these names, Sandra Bland, all these
encounters that were lifted up that end up in deadly shootings, but start as innocent encounters with people that done minimal with regards to any type of traffic violation that's wrong. Some not even completely citable by a ticket. Yeah, that's the scary part of it, Santita.
It is frightening. It is frightening that you, for a traffic stop, I mean, that your chances of this happening diminish greatly at night because we have the what, according to the Stanford University study, the veil of darkness. Let's go to Laura from Atlanta. Laura, what's on your mind?
Hello, Santita.
Hey, sweetie, how are you?
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing just fine. How about yourself?
I'm doing great.
Excellent. I got my booster shot and everything.
Take care of yourself, all right?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes, and I'm wondering how I called about your well-being.
Oh, I'm doing really well. God is good. God is good. God is good. And as soon as I get off the air, I can start with my vitamin C. I take a lot of that. I take a very high concentration of that every day. My vitamin D, and just I'm doing everything I can to boost my immune system, because no matter what, if your immune system is not functioning, if you don't get enough sleep, and losing sleep diminishes your immune system, you can have trouble. So I hope one of your takeaways, everyone's takeaway from this experience for me, is that, the healthier you are in terms of your baseline health, the better able you are to fight off whatever it is. There's more than COVID out here. See, I was trying to track for pneumonia and bronchitis because that has been something that I've had to deal with, that I've had to struggle with. And pneumonia can take you out of here. The last time I had it, I felt like I didn't think I was going to make it. One night I had to stay up literally all night long because you're struggling literally for every breath, and your heart rate shows that. So just take care of yourself, no matter what you do, no matter what you do. And thank you for checking in on me, Laura. I feel great.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you. I'm sending you much love. Love you, girl.
Me too.
I love you, Laura. Thank you. Thank you all for checking in. Y'all make me feel so loved. Let me go to Noel from the south side of Chicago. Noel, how are you?
Good morning, Ms. Jackson, and welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay. And this message is for your attorneys on the panel. I'm a former police officer, so I have a great idea about this Loyola stop. And this stop went wrong because of the police officer. Okay? You cannot tase anybody by holding the person after disengaged and tase them from a distance. To turn off your body camera, listen to this, attorneys. You must hold your camera 3 to 4 seconds twice, so it doesn't turn off accidentally when you are fighting somebody on the ground. The officer turned off the camera intentionally. Okay? This is not speculation. I know this because to turn the camera off, you have to hold down the button 3 to 4 seconds twice. Secondly, he reached for his holster in what we call a level 3 holster. He reached for his gun in a level 3 holster. You cannot just take that gun out of the holster. You have to perform certain maneuvers to get that gun out of that holster. Why? Because they don't want a suspect taking it off your body while you are knocked out. That's why it's a level 3 holster. And he placed on the back of his head and he shot. That was that execution. Okay? I'm not going to give you his full name. The officer's first name is Christopher P.S. Okay, until it reads his name. His first name is Christopher. Okay? He executed this man on the traffic stop. Know that it was an execution. Okay? He intentionally turned off the body cam. He intentionally reached for his level 3 gun out of his gun into level 3 holster. He placed in the back of the individual head and he killed him. So if you guys go to court, make sure you subpoena his records, his training record. This is not about training. This was intentional. So your attorneys know this, okay?
Oh, look, I hear you. Does anyone want to respond to that?
No, I think that was a good analysis, even though he wasn't actually in the situation. He gave us some good information in order to share with why intent is something that could be argued. I think the problem here is, like when you mentioned earlier, Santita, about Amadou Diallo, there were 4 officers that shot 41 bullets in the air, 19 of which hit Amadou Diallo, who was from Guinea. He was a 23-year-old Guinean who was shot in New York at the door of his home. Now, the thing is, all 4 of those officers were acquitted. So in 1999 and 2000, when this occurred, what are we going to do in 2022? Is this officer's intent really going to be able to be found that he has actually murdered this person? With all the things that the officer just laid out, is the jury willing to convict? That is the problem.
And let's go to Chaparral. Chaparral, what's on your mind? We tried to reach you earlier, Chaparral, but I guess you wanted to get in on this conversation.
Yes, Santita, thank you so much for taking my call. I wanted to say that what we're seeing is so consistent across America and even outside of the United States, what's happening to Black and brown people, that policing is extremely aggressive. As everyone knows, well, some people may not know, but my son Courtney Copeland was killed back in March of 2016. He was handcuffed, but he was shot. We still don't know who shot him, but we know that the police handcuffed him while he was dying. And one of the things that we also know, Santita, is that they use these labels on my son. They said that he was violent, combative, agitated, all in the report. That we know that in seeing the video that we had to fight for, we know that those were absolutely untrue. And so they take these narratives on Black and brown people so they can justify the things that they do. And they can justify the aggressive behavior because they're projecting in their mind, they have these preconceived notions that Black people are violent, that they are going to be aggressive, that they are known criminals. And 9 times out of 10, this may absolutely not be true. And so what we see in the police kill of Mr. Loyola is that we see that there was never any space given to a conversation to have with him to see what it was. There was never an interpreter call. There was never a pause. And they never give us the space to try to even reason with them. It's always aggressive. It's always pull out your gun, pull out your taser over a traffic stop. And people are dying relentlessly without even a blink of an eye. I mean, it's happening so fast. When I think about Samir Rice, he never saw the officer. And this 12-year-old child was murdered for playing with a toy gun. He was never given any warning, and we're constantly seeing this happen all across America. And but what I'm seeing also, Santita, is that Black people are getting tired of it. They are beginning to buck up at the police, and I don't see anything good coming out of this for us as Black people, or any progression with the relationship with policing in the community.
Well, I don't see anything good coming out of this. I don't see anything good coming out of this because you have a breakdown, Attorney Mark Fancher. There is the respect that Americans of all colors have for institutions is going down the sinkhole. I mean, like with a quickness, and that is very dangerous because when I have trouble, I want to call the police, but I'm afraid to call the police because I don't know what they're going to do. Mark, as we're looking at these numbers that are trending, it's every 3rd day in America someone is getting killed because of a traffic stop. While it's 28% of Black people, it's 72% of everybody else. I mean, this is just awful. I mean, and I'm not diminishing what happens to Black people. I'm saying something is rotten here in Denmark. The United States. Something's not right, Mark.
Yeah, and something good can come of this. It really depends on us. I'd like to back up just a second and put all of this into some context. The racialized trends of this are no accident, and they're based not simply on bigotry. In the sense that we generally think about it, white police officers patrolling and out on the hunt for black people. A lot of it has to do with statistics. If they look at the crime statistics, they always find that the arrest rates in communities of color are much higher than they are in white communities. There are different lessons that can be drawn from that. The lesson that most of us draw from that is that, well, you're looking for crime in those communities, and therefore you're going to arrest more people than you are in white communities where the crimes are occurring at similar rates. But the conclusion you draw from that is that black people are behaving consistent with the stereotype that they are inherently more criminal, then you begin to develop a culture within policing, which tells you that whenever we go into a community of color, we've got to be on our guard. It's enemy territory. We need to be prepared to attack. We need to be prepared to draw first. We need to deal with them from a position of authority. And so it's a circular thing. I've had this conversation with police chiefs. I say, well, why do you think that black communities are more dangerous? Well, because that's where most of the crime is. Well, why do you think the crime is greater there? Because that's what the statistics say. Well, where do you send your police officers? We send them where the crime is. I mean, it's a circular thing, and it perpetuates itself. But they've done objective independent studies which show that with respect to traffic stops, that most often those who are black are less likely to be carrying drugs, guns, or other contraband, and white drivers are far more likely, percentage-wise, to be carrying them. So it's just bad policing. If they're looking for crime and they're using racial profiling as the basis for stopping people, they're stopping all the wrong people. And while they're on the roadside talking to a black person or another person of color, the white person with the contraband is zooming right past them, uninterrupted and allowed to continue with their criminal behavior. But the other thing that I want to point out, and it's a stark kind of a difference that I see from my perspective, and that is that because people in the community know that I deal with police misconduct and that kind of thing, I get requests for assistance not just from people of color, but I have white guys who contact me and say that they were abused by the police, et cetera, and not only that, they've got videos of what happened to them that they've taken with their phones or their other devices. When I look at the videos of black people who've been stopped, usually the black people are very compliant, they're very polite, they're very reserved, and the white cops go crazy on them anyway. They yell at them, they beat them up, they do whatever they do. When I get these videos from white guys, most of the time, these white guys are out of their minds. They're screaming at the officers. They're insisting, I've got rights. They're threatening to sue them. They're demanding their badge numbers, demanding their names, running across the street and telling other people what's happening to them. I mean, they're just really carrying on. And the police officers in these situations are very reserved. They're very calm. They're trying to de-escalate the situation. They're talking to them respectfully. Well, Mr. Smith, we really need to calm down. We can talk about this. I mean, that's the demeanor that they have, which betrays, in the most obvious way, the racial disparity and the expectations that these officers have. And I think that, the only way to break this down is, as I said earlier, is to get rid of these guys. There are too many soldier cops in these police departments and not enough people who are equipped and trained to deal with nonviolent emergencies that constitute the majority of what police officers are asked to do. To the extent that there is a need for an armed response and for soldiers, keep a few of those guys around on the force, but have them carefully controlled and monitored by the community and deployed only in those situations where there is a violent crime. But otherwise, keep them off the streets. And I think that the more diverse race, but diverse in terms of training, experience, background, and everything, the less likely it is that a soldier-type culture will take hold in these departments. And I think that the community as a whole is going to be a whole lot safer. It's up to us to insist that that's the nature of policing of the future.
Amen to that. Amen to, because white people socially have much more space than black people do. And you will see, you know, when you see the kids acting out in stores, all of that. And we have to look at all of that as we're trying to work towards solutions here. Anastasia Sanat, I have a couple of minutes for you. What is our takeaway from this, and how do we go forward?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I think that the first part of police reform requires not only kind of touching on who we're selecting to be in our police departments, but also how we're training them and making them culturally aware. I think in this particular situation, we have a police officer who obviously didn't get the memo that there are actually black people that don't speak English in our country. And so when you're thinking about something as simple as a language barrier when it comes to the color of the skin, we have to really consider what kind of cultural awareness training have these police officers given. But then I want to take it back to the administration of the police department, because they're selecting these militaristic soldier mentality type personalities. And that's where we have a lot of problems. We have a lot of people who have served in our country, and, you know, we thank you for your service. However, when that service to the country then becomes service to the local communities, you can't continue with the warlike mentality that black people are the enemy and you are there to defend against the enemy. I think the narrative has come, as I think she mentioned earlier, the caller earlier, who had lost her son, my condolences to her, where she said the narrative has always been black people are the enemy. And that's how these police officers tend to have been selected. They're looking for that mentality. I think if we change and reform that mentality selection process, as well as to train, including the cultural awareness that, yes, not all black people are quote-unquote black Americans from the South that grew up in the civil rights movement. Some of these individuals come from ravaged countries and they don't even speak English. So I think reform will start with those two things. Thank you for your time.
No question. But you know, the thing is, at the end of the day, they're black, though. I mean, and that's the thing, because whatever your language is, because we all came here speaking something else, black people are targeted. And I think that wherever you come from, and this, we have to speak to the black diaspora, because too many people in the black diaspora don't know what we go through here. That's, I mean, because you can make these police culturally aware. They don't care. They don't care. They are dealing. I mean, because I have someone here who said, "Look, thank you for showing the difference between how white people who are arrested tend to behave and black folks. Black folks become very compliant, because I know when I see the police, I got a problem. But I got about a minute before we go, and of course we'll talk a little bit on Facebook Live. But Attorney Jones, your closing thought."
Thank you, Santita. And, you know, right now, I think the most important thing for all of us to do is to get involved with an organization that is confronting a lot of these issues that are out there. If it's the ACLU, the NAACP, Rainbow Push, Transformative Justice Coalition, whatever the organization, we need you to get involved and to become active and to be certain that you stand up for those rights, that we do not yield our basic right to exist and to move freely throughout the country. So we've got to be certain we stand up for our rights. We've got to be certain that we vote and that we put in place, because you've got to remember, the chief of police is appointed by who? Generally by the mayor or a county executive, and they are voted in. Our voice is our vote. We want to affect change. We've got to be certain that we put people in positions that can affect the change for us and that we vote them in. That's my closing thoughts on this one, Santita.
Hey, everybody. And you made the point. Join these organizations. They help you, everybody. They are your advocates. Of course, we send much love to the family of Patrick Loyola. But this happens all the time. Sandra Bland, Philando Castile. I mean, Tamir Rice. It just happens over and over and over and over again. It happens across racial lines. And this has got to change. It's got to change. And under the veil of darkness, guess what? Black people have more of a chance if you're driving at night. It's that crazy. Patrick Leoya shot in the back of the head. Mark, you cannot make this stuff up. But we're going to have to make some change. It's not just about talking about these problems. We've got to look at some solutions. Got to look at some solutions. You know, we all want the police. We just don't want to be policed, right? You want the police to have your back. You just don't want them on your back. Think about that, everybody. Think about that. The way you make police safe is to have, is for them to have integrity. Really, there's a lot that's going on. I love you, everybody. It's been a joy to be back with you today. And thank you, Devin, for a great show. Thank you for WCPT and AM 950 Radio for giving me the space to get well. I love you, everybody. See you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. My beautiful people, how are you? Thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, always, always. You feeling okay? Anastasia? You feeling okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All right. You take care of yourself
Yes,
now.
ma'am. All right. You all have a wonderful day. God bless.
Oh, God bless you. And thank you. Thank you for always offering your perspectives. You know, we love you. Love you. Anastasia always worries after the show. She says, wait a minute. Did I say? I'm like, honey, say what you got to say. Speak your piece. Do I still have Attorney Jones or Attorney Fancher? If not, that's all right. I love you, everybody. It's been a joy being back. And I'm going to go on sending you much love. I love you, Joyce. D-Ray. That's right. I am so glad I'm better. It's nothing but God. Nothing but God. You have a super fantastic day, Barbara Bacon. And wow, sending you all so much love today. Thank you so much for your prayers and your thoughts. And thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for coming back. Thank you. And thank you, Andrea Darlis and Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson. Wouldn't have been able to do this without you. And Devin and Matt and Paul, my team there, and Matt and Mark and everybody there. I'm sending you so much love and appreciation. I love you, everybody. I will see you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show.